For day 20 of the Scientific Wellbeing Diary, I spent the time reviewing the research notes from my assistant and requesting refinement, and then he's been working on that. And for day 21, I'm going to read and talk about some of the research notes in a couple of ways. So one of the ideas I mentioned earlier on in the month was that I thought it would be great to make a video about the power women have, particularly Western women in wealthier areas of the world, to dramatically reduce resources and the strain on our ecology over the next 50 years by choosing to have one less child or no children at all. And as part of that research project, which I like because there's a lot of political emphasis on the role of male power, and yet what I think you'll join me in seeing as we look through these notes is that women, in many cases, have the unilateral power to do more global good than almost anyone else, simply by choosing to have fewer children. And if desired, adopting, loving, and nourishing some of the many children who are suffering from inadequate parenting and government support around the world. So let's go through these notes. So in what I'm calling upper class, I mean wealthier, in wealthier families, where significantly more resources are spent. We've got a lifespan of 86 years, and someone like you or I, born in a wealthy American or English or whatever neighborhood, are going to generate 102 tons of garbage. So because I exist, 100 tons. So, a ton is, roughly, 2,000 pounds. So it's about 15 of me. And so there's going to be about 15 of me in weight. Now the volume, because we're talking about plastics and light things, may be much bigger. So we may be looking at many truckloads of massive amounts of garbage being generated because I exist. And so this disappears. This 100 tons of garbage disappears simply when one woman makes the choice not to have a child. 100 tons of garbage disappears. Now, 1,548 tons of CO2 disappears. Now, I should say I'm going to post this document up in terms of sources and all that, because that sounds like a lot of tons of CO2, and I'm not sure how CO2 is measured in weight, since it's usually, a chemical in the air, and usually anything more than a pound will sink. But these are the numbers we have, and I've asked my assistant to provide notes to sources and links and all that. So I'm going to post this document up for you, and actually ask for your help to turn this into a viral video, as many people as possible. This is a great educational tool. 1,548 tons. So that's again 2,000 pounds over a lifetime that wouldn't be in the air. And so we've got, again, 56,000 gallons, 56,000 gallons of gasoline drilled up, transported, and then evaporated as a result of someone like me existing. 56,000 gallons. So if someone wants to save gas, save, political tensions around oil and etc., your choice not to have a child. 56,000 gallons of gas, 1,500 tons of CO2, 1,000 tons of garbage. Now, there's another number here. How much gas will be used to produce and transport all the products one individual consumes? That's another 34,000 gallons. So all these ships back and forth to China and all that for all of our cheap goods. 34,000 gallons. So if we combine that with the 56, we're looking at roughly 90,000 gallons of oil and gas being consumed to transport the products and all the related movement around of one individual over an 86-year period. And so again, that all disappears with the choice not to have a child. Now, the average cost for a wealthy child, $383,000. Now that's the money spent by the parent. And so that is a lot of money. That is, if it can be invested to produce a dividend, that's maybe $20,000 a year or more in passive income, which is enough to retire, today in many nice tropical areas, for example, Thailand. Now, we're also going to spend $79,000 in public tax money. So that's, again, the wealthy are going to pay more money in taxes in order to fund all the public education and infrastructure for one extra person. So we're looking at $79,000, $80,000 in government funding on average. But then our government is very inefficient at gathering tax money and then redistributing. So we don't have the data on this, but my guess is that if the government spends $80,000, it wastes at least $40,000 in overhead and inefficiencies and stuff like that. So I'm guessing that it actually costs the taxpayer closer to around $110,000 for them to spend 79. Now, we also have another number, which is that in our country, where up to 2% of the population is in the prison system. I mean, it's just absurd. A lot of it is the ineffectiveness and just the faulty premise on the war on drugs, which is also often a war on consciousness and an increase in gang racketeering. There's a good book called Food for the Gods, and there's some very good scientific research about how things like psilocybin or marijuana have lower death rates in terms of the medical term, which is called LD50, and LSD as well. Lower death rates than most pharmaceutical drugs and alcohol and cigarettes, etc., etc. So in other words, that we're spending a fortune to lock up people that have are taking drugs that are only illegal because the government panicked in the 60s and 70s and ceased all scientific research, but are actually much harm. They're much less harm to our bodies and to society than things such as alcohol. And so, but we have to take into account that if 2 of every 100 people are going to be in jail at $80,000 a year, that's $160,000 per 100. That's $1.6 per year, again, spent on the populace. Not a good use of our money, but it is being spent. And we're looking at 33,000 hours spent by the parent over until age 18. So this is an extraordinary amount of time. What I mean by that is I've listened to more than 5,000 hours of audiobooks over the last 5 years, roughly 1,000 a year. It's a great investment to spend $5,000 on Audible and read, all the most interesting books on positive psychology, happiness research, well-being, etc., 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 business, and but that's 5,000 hours, and I would say that I've learned a tremendous amount that is useful to my well-being with 5,000 hours. But a parent is spending 33,000 hours, which means that I can spend 5,000 hours reading books and have plenty of time to spare, which I do, otherwise I wouldn't have time for these projects. Whereas a parent who's spending 33,000 hours will often be very, very strapped for time and not have time to study areas of health and well-being and intelligence and business success on books on tape. Now, studies show that stress increases 200 to 300% after having a child. Studies also show the correlation between health risks and stress, which means that you will have increased depression and mental illness as a probability field after having a child. Now, exactly what the curve of stress is not, we don't have a graph to show over an 18-year period, but 300%, 2 to 300% increase right after having a child. I would imagine once the learning curve catches up, that goes down, and then there's probably another bump in the teen years, which may continue to escalate or go down depending on the parent's parenting skills, which should not be counted on in a culture that is not a very relationally and community-oriented culture to begin with, and then teaches parents absolutely nothing in formal education about how to be a great parent. So another, what we're looking at is all the various costs associated with having a child. In other words, a woman, or a man, but a woman has the power to unilaterally decide to delete all of these expenses and resources and risk factors from her and her partner's life by making a choice not to have another child or a child at all. And this can be amplified by 3 times. You delete the plan to have 3 children and instead adopt and take care of an existing child that needs help, and many do. We're talking about doubling all these numbers by 3, because this is all for 1 child. And so, big one, sex. How do you feel about decreasing your sex life by at least 50%? Well, all you have to do is have a child, and done. So statistics show sex decreases by 50% or more in surveys of people about their sex life prior to having a child and after. So a nice bonus, for doing a gift to the planet, doing a gift for other people. You can decrease your sex life, or you can increase your sex life significantly. Now, the area that gets really interesting and kind of ties into a project like this is what if you and I, rather than having a child, spent 8,000 hours, or less than a third of the cost of hours of raising a child, 8,000 hours, which is, by the way, enough to become a world expert. Somewhere between 2,500 hours and 10,000 hours, depending on who you consult, depending on the topic, is enough time to allow you to be a world expert in a given topic. So I want to be a world expert in something really useful to the environment, to how to increase recycling efficiency, energy efficiency, battery efficiency, that kind of thing. You have the chance to do that with 1/3 of the amount of time, that in 8,000 hours. Now similarly, take 1/3 or a quarter. Let's take a quarter of your budget, 25% of the money you'd spend on a child, and spend $95,000 looking at how you can create enormous levels of well-being. So for $100,000, of course you can pay off all your credit card debt, and then still, in some areas, in some instances, it's in some areas and in some instances, you can save a life by giving key, very inexpensive medicine, water purification things to people that need it at a vulnerable moment, where they don't need, to be hospitalized. They don't need to be a dependent of yours for the next 20 years. They just need, a cleaner cooking fuel, or a tuberculosis vaccine or antibiotic. And in those situations, you can save a life in parts of the world for as little as $5. $5. You can cure blindness for as little as $5. I mean, if you focus on the challenge of, I'm not only going to increase my sex life reduce CO2, reduce gasoline, reduce stress, increase the well-being in my marriage. I'm not only going to become a world expert in something for 10,000 hours, I am going to save literally 1,000 lives for $5,000 at vulnerable points. I'm going to adopt, there goes your time if you do that, or I'm going to pay. If you don't want to adopt, you can pay very good mothers. Like, I'm always struck by the quality of mothering in Thailand or the Philippines. That's not the issue. The problem is that, particularly in the Philippines, mothers are abandoning their children to work overseas and sending money back, but it's not a lot of money. We're talking about maybe $1,000 a month, $500 a month. So for $500 a month, you can support a mother that wants to stay at home, in many cases a single mother who wants to stay at home and take care of her child. You can support her for $6,000 a year and not have a child of your own, but a child will get better care, better nurturing support and mothering there than many Westerners are capable of with the Western style of mindset and life, which is not the present attentive bonding that is best for early brain development. So there's a real opportunity to support other mothers in doing a better job of mothering, which in turn reduces crime rates, reduces health care costs, reduces stress and trauma, increases intelligence, and we've got a younger generation that has significantly more potency. So this is an exciting arena. Like UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund, states that by donating $11 to their fund, you can save 3 lives. Well, $95,000 leaves you, $200,000 to $300,000 to spare, and you can save a lot of lives. And $25 helps feed a child 3 meals a day for a month in India. So this is an exciting arena to, as part of this scientific well-being question, how to spend the least amount of time and money to produce the most well-being. Well, what we're just seeing is that in terms of we're in this vulnerable state in our human evolution where things are moving very, very fast and where we're destroying aspects of our natural environment faster than we're learning to recreate them. Well, this buys us time. Basically, by slowing down the population curve, it allows us to all go a little slower into the great beyond. So thanks for watching, and I'm going to post this document and invite you to take it and turn it into your own viral video.